Tempers are flaring in France.
Unruly scenes outside the European Parliament today.
Farmers burning tires, spraying government buildings with manure, and shutting down roads leading into Paris.
Farmers from across Europe have been throwing eggs and stones at the Parliament building.
Miles of tractors are blocking lanes or entire sections of motorway as they try to inch closer to the capital.
We are seeing the biggest political strikes and labour demonstrations for a very long time.
Farmers are campaigning against cheap imports, red tape, high production costs, price pressures from retailers, and the impact on their sector of climate change policies.
We can't earn a living. We're subject to enormous constraints, and there are products coming in from outside Europe that compete with us without having to apply the same rules that we're obligated to in order to produce.
Why is it that we tell a European farmer that he cannot produce like this, but we allow food products to enter the European market, which cost less?
The movement is spreading now across Europe to neighbouring countries.
Brussels to Greece to Portugal. Farmers erupting in protests across the continent.
Germany and in France and Holland, Romania, even in Switzerland.
Italian farmers have also been joining the Europe-wide protest movement.
We are asking the leaders to review their laws. They talk about being greener, but if that happens, then there will be land which isn't worked anymore, and it's difficult enough as it is.
These strikes are fueling this narrative that governments across Europe and the EU don't care enough about the issues surrounding these farmers.
We want to show that we still matter. They must listen to us. We will go on indefinitely until we reach our goals.
We've been really reporting on this extensively. I mean, this is an attack on the food supply. When you look at the Netherlands, I mean, that is, you know, the garden country, right? They make food. I mean, I think we get tulips still from them. I mean, just amazing growers. In the center of that is MP Rob Roos, who is really been fighting all the craziness. We've talked about him throughout COVID, standing up against the vaccine and making demands in Parliament. Well, he stood before Parliament to talk about this issue of farmers. He's literally fighting for the people. This is what that looks like.
Overal in Europa komen boeren in protest. De aanleiding verschilt. In Nederland is het stikstof, in Duitsland hogere accijnzen. Maar de reden ligt dieper en is overal hetzelfde. In Brussel en in onze hoofdsteden hebben regenten besloten dat we verkeerd leven en dat alles anders moet. Er is een gigantische kloof ontstaan tussen de grote meerderheid en de stedelijke academische regentenklasse. Die klasse die beheert de politiek, maar waardeert boeren niet, terwijl de boeren ons voeden. Iedere dag. Regentenklasse wil onze boeren laten verdwijnen, regeltje voor regeltje, om daarna handelsakkoorden te sluiten met de hele wereld. Voortaan gaan we appels uit Vietnam invliegen, in naam van het klimaat natuurlijk. Jullie leden van het Europees Parlement moeten in de spiegel kijken. De massale boerenprotesten gaan over jullie. Jullie zijn hier verantwoordelijk voor. Stop mensen te dwingen anders te leven. Stop de boeren het werk onmogelijk te maken. We hebben onze boeren keihard nodig. Voedselzekerheid is ook een kwestie van nationale veiligheid. No farmers, no food, no future.
Well, it's my honor and pleasure to be joined by Dutch Member of Parliament Rob Roos now. Rob, first of all, we've been big fans for some time here in America on the High Wire, so thank you for taking the time to join us.
It's my pleasure. It's very nice to be with you.
Okay. You know, here in America, we are not getting a lot of news about what these farm protests are. We get quick glimpses of tractors surrounding Parliament buildings, you know, people throwing eggs. At times, it seems very volatile. What is at the heart, at least for Dutch farmers, and when we think of Holland, we think of probably the greatest farming nation in the world. What is at the heart of the issues that the farmers are having?
Well, the things are different in the member states in Europe, but the problem is everywhere the same. The global elites, they grow up in the cities and they want us to change our complete life. They want us to stop to eat meat. They want to have us electric cars. They want us to have heat pumps. everything we have done so far is wrong, and they are changing our life. It's a kind of social engineering, and it's implemented by the Green Deal of Frans Timmermans. But these farmer protests started in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is, after the United States, the second largest food producer in the world. The Netherlands is 19 times smaller than Texas, so we are a very small country. But that proves how efficient our farmers are. And it started in the Netherlands because we have a huge agriculture industry. And now it's all over Europe, in Poland, in Lapland, in Greece, in Spain, Italy, France, Belgium. All the farmers are coming in protest. And that is because of EU law. And that is really the problem, the Green Deal.
I know some time back we were watching the attempt to cut back on nitrogen fertilizers. I know in the Netherlands, there's, they're looking at being next to natural spaces, and then farms look like they're being shut down at times to make way for green, green environmental spaces. And we've seen this pressure in Sri Lanka. We saw how a change in farming just destroyed a people. Farmers committing suicide because they're not being given the tools to do the farming that they've done for their entire lives. When you talk about the global elites, does this, we see the meat eating is going away. But what is so shocking for me is they've turned from meat eating now into vegetables and fruits and things like that, that now it just appears that all natural food is under attack. How do we make sense of that?
Yes, you mentioned Sri Lanka, and that's correct. That's the ESG, the Environmental Social Government. Sri Lanka, they scored a 98.1 on the E of ESG. And for example, the United States was at 57%, something like that. So they did a perfect job. They had a tremendous score on the E of ESG, but it was chaos. The people didn't have any food anymore. So this is what is going to happen. The president said at that time, I'm going to make my country wealthy, but he turned them into chaos. And this is now happening everywhere. It's just not in Europe, it's also happening in the United States. It's the UN 2030 agenda. And people have to change lives. And they abuse climate as to create this socialist agenda. It's bigger than that.
So how is the pressure? I know in America we're having an issue where we have a lot of corporate influence now in our government. It's one of the big regulatory capture is sort of taking over our government. So I see how the pressures are coming in there. But in Europe, I don't know how the systems actually work. But how does the WEF and the World Health Organization, how do these organizations have power over nations like yours? What is it? Are they using World Bank to bring pressure? Like what pressure? Because it just seems so outside of the reality. It seems like we are watching politicians work against the best interest of their own people, of their own citizens, of their own economies. What type of pressure is being used to make, nations go against their own best interests?
Yeah, it's they use fear. They use fear. It's really shocking to see how they create fear amongst our children with this climate issue. The Greta Thunberg is used to confuse the young people. Okay. It's really confusing. These people are really depressed, these young people. And we also saw that with COVID. They also used fear to turn the people in their way they wanted to go them. And this is the problem. Even the politicians going to the WEF. And I call that network corruption, because the politicians are going there, they are with the big corporates, they are in politics right now, but they are very busy taking care of their own career, of their own future. And as a politician, you should be humble and you should serve the people. That is your main task. We have a mandate from the people to make their lives better. But instead, they serve the big corporates, and that's not helping the people. And the European Union was meant to make the economics better, and we did a good job. But what we see now is with this socialist agenda, Agenda 2030, they push a real socialist agenda. Maybe it's even communist. And it's really not helping the people, and that's what I'm fighting against.
Here in America, one of the concerns that's happening is there seems to be a divide created between our education system. Our university systems are really pushing more of a socialist agenda. You brought up Greta Thunberg. You know, the youth of America starting to celebrate an idea of communism at many times, you know, to the point where some politicians are saying we need to start re-educate. We need to get involved in the educational process to remind people how ugly communism can be. Are you having a similar, tear in your society between the young people in the Netherlands and the older people? You know, are the youth thinking that it's a good idea to shut down farming? I mean, what's happening inside the population of your country right now?
That's also a globalist agenda. You see that in the United States, and you see it also in Europe. It's a problem of the West. Our children are being indoctrinated that they should not eat meat, that the climate is the most important thing in the world. Of course,
they're even being told here not to have kids, like don't have children. Like if you want to save the planet, don't have children.
But this is exactly what they are doing. They go against family values. They go against natural food. They go against freedom, because if you have to buy an electric car, they are maybe twice as expensive, and people cannot buy that. So it's not about the car, it's about you cannot go anywhere. You depend on public traffic. It's taking away your freedom. It's also digitalization. What we see is the digital identity and central bank digital currency. It's really a new wave, a new form of communism about central planning, about controlling people. If you want to control the people, you have to control the CO2, because everything we do in life, breathing, living, traveling, eating, everything we do in life leads to CO2 emissions. And if you can control the CO2, you can control the people. And if you then have the digital identity connected to the central bank digital currency, which they say we will not connect that. No, not in the first year, maybe not in the second year, but after 5 years they say, okay, it's now so bad with the climate, we have to create this climate budget, this CO2 budget, and then we have Chinification.
So much of this sort of was really fast-tracked during COVID. We know the WEF used that opportunity to call it the Great Reset. You have one of my favorite moments in this entire COVID discussion when you finally got to, ask questions with one of the heads of Pfizer. Let's just revisit that very quickly for a moment. Take a look at this.
Was the Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market? If not, please say it clearly. If yes, are you willing to share the data with this committee? And I really want a straight answer, yes or no, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Regarding the question around, did we know about stopping immunisation before it entered the market? No, we had to really move at the speed of science to really understand what is taking place in the market. And from that point of view, we had to do everything at risk.
So in there, you've got one of the heads of Pfizer saying, we were moving at the speed of science. Obviously, that is a terrible answer. To find out that we shut down the world waiting for this vaccine, they basically use guilt on everybody. If you don't use this product, you're putting everyone else at risk. So we now know that they had never even tested to see if it protected people outside of you, never tested to see if it could stop transmission. Of course, we've seen this vaccine fail. People getting 5, 6 doses are getting COVID 2, 3, 4 times. And then, there's the side effects. We're watching excess mortality across the world. Here in America last year, just in the first 9 months, we had 150,000 people die above the sort of average rate we saw prior to COVID, which means no COVID, something's killing these people. How big, how much of that conversation is starting to sink in? I'm seeing some testimonies about excess mortality. I'm seeing a few news programs ask the question once in a while. Do you think this is something we still need to stay focused on over in Europe? Because here, I think that it's still a critical issue to get to the bottom of what happened during COVID, because it's how they have sort of taken control of the world in many ways.
Yeah, this is exactly what also is going on right now in Europe. I wrote a big article in the biggest newspaper here in the Netherlands that I missed the reflection on the political decisions, because what Janine Small admitted to me during this COVID meeting, actually we already knew. We saw Omicron. Everyone who was vaccinated, they were the first ones who were infected again. So for me, it was not a surprise, but it was a surprise that she gave me an honest answer. Yes. But the real problem is that our governments knew that this vaccine was not tested to prevent the spread of the virus, and still they were pushing this vaccine to all the people, but even to young children, 6 years and younger, because you have to protect your grandfather and your grandmother. And this people should be held accountable, including Dr. Fauci. It was horrible. Small businesses collapsed. Young people, they had a problem with education. If you live in a small apartment with 3 children and you have only 1 laptop, these children, how can they? We have a huge problem with education at this moment, and it was terrible. And there is still no reflection on what's going on. And this excess mortality, I'm not a medical doctor. My background is, I'm actually an entrepreneur and electrical engineer, but I can read data. I spoke to doctors and they said, if you look at the countries with the lowest rate of taking the vaccine, these countries have also lower extra mortality. So, well, there is something that should really be investigated, and I'm sure this administration of Biden will not do it.
You've been sort of at the forefront of many of these issues now. You are pushing back against this global agenda. Are you surrounded with other politicians in the Netherlands that agree with you, or are you a bit of a lone wolf? I mean, what is the climate right now?
Yeah, well, the politics in Europe is so much different than in the United States. In the United States, you have many people in politics that were already successful, because if you want to run for office, you need quite a lot of money. In Europe, it's different. We have what I call a party. Yeah, you have to be a member of a party, and they have to put you on the list. So it's more about loyalty than it's about quality. And unfortunately, in the Netherlands, I'm actually the only one. They attacked me for I was an anti-vax. I was a climate denier. They give me a lot of names, but I don't care. I'm an entrepreneur. I was a businessman. I'm still a businessman, but I went into politics to fight for my country and to fight for freedom, because I have children and probably grandchildren in the near future, and I want them to grow up as free people. And this is really a problem in Europe. We have in the European Parliament, we have people, they have never worked a single day in the private sector, and absolutely not worked for their own risk and their own money. So yeah, this is call me a lone wolf. We are maybe with 6. The European Parliament exists of 705 members of the European Parliament, and maybe, now let's say maybe 10 are fighting for freedom. It's not much, unfortunately.
Wow, that's incredible. But you are one of the ones now standing up when we see these giant protests. You must be getting a lot of support from farmers and people that are waking up. I mean, that's a huge wave of energy to be behind just a very small group of people. Is it giving you a little bit of fortitude and power in the situation?
Yes, of course they attack me. I'm far right, and I say, well, so far I'm right, and no, it's really. I knew I was right. That's and you know, and I really can say that is if everyone in the world was like me, the world would really be a better place, because I'm not only taking care of the people who are conservative, I also want to make the liberal people's lives better. I'm fighting for everyone's freedom, and but of course, what I see now is all these farmers coming up, and also I'm an expert in energy, and I predict that's why I went into politics, because I predicted all this energy problems that we have in Europe. We cannot do this transition, and also over there, it's becoming very clear that I was right. Now we see nuclear plants growing everywhere. I was advocating for nuclear energy instead of this crazy wind turbines and solar panels, because we cannot control it. So yes, on every topic, they give me names, but now they have to admit, yeah, we give you names, but actually you had the right point.
The energy is such a big thing, the green energy. Here in America, they want to switch to electric cars. I think the goal of the Biden administration is something like 60% electric cars by 2030. We already have our electrical grid is failing during hot days and cold days. It's hard to imagine what we're going to do if all the cars are trying to power off of that. All of these things, it seems like the world is being run by children who have a dream of some ideal, but no actual way to deliver it, and putting us really in harm's way. I think we're facing famine. We're seeing people die during, not having, heating in cold times. And I think even in Europe, I think in Germany, they were having to open up churches and libraries so people could stay warm. It feels like we're going back into the dark ages when it comes to technology, something you know so much about. I know you've got to get running, and I'm really happy you took the time. What is your advice to America? I mean, I think in many ways, our nation, can lead, has the ability to lead, and we sort of have this rebellious streak inside of us. I think there's a bigger uprising in many ways happening inside of our population. More than 30% rejected the vaccine here. Only, I think, less than 10% are getting the boosters now. I feel like we're waking up. But if we wake up, what is it we need to do with our understanding?
Well, first of all, I hope that the Republicans can be united, and whoever the president candidate will be, that they all support him, because the Democrats are, we call them liberals, but we should stop calling them liberals, because they are the anti-liberals, and the Republicans, that is my only hope. Also here in Europe, we see really a big shift. In the Netherlands, we had Geert Wilders, who won the elections with a landslide. In Greece, in France, Marine Le Pen is leading the polls, and also in Italy. In all the European nation states, we see the conservatives are coming up. So there is hope. First of all, we should take back the educational system, teach our children how to read and how to write, and stop all this gender policy, this crazy gender policy. We have only a man and a woman, and for the rest, it's just imagination. Then we should also take over the institutions, because I think what we did wrong as classic liberals or conservatives, we said, okay, you can have the education, you can have the culture, let us do the economy. But that was a huge mistake. Culture is very important.
Wow.
We see Netflix is changing people's lives. And so take back the education system and take back the culture, and also do the economy. But we have a lot of work to do.
Do you think protests are helpful? Do you agree? I mean, do you think that farmers surrounding places of, Parliament and here in America is protesting, the right to gather and make your voice known? Does that have a value, or do you think it undermines the goal?
No. We should speak out, and that's the problem. People are captured in the system. If you speak out, we saw that during COVID, people were cancelled. So they have to make a living. That is really a problem. But if everyone starts speaking out, if we achieve the critical threshold, then everyone has the guts to do it. But speaking out, freedom of speech is so. That's why I'm very happy with Elon Musk X, and that he is also under attack here in Europe. But I will defend him also. We have to speak out. We have to fight for freedom, and the more people are speaking out, it makes it more easier, because we see the big farmers protest. They already achieved the first results. The European Commission, they withdraw all kinds of new regulations. So no, it really makes a difference, and we should say. You went too far already, so stop it right now, and then taking back our freedom.
Fantastic. Well, Rob, I really appreciate you taking the time. I hope you'll keep us informed of all of your progress out there. Our prayers are with you. You really are a hero in this time. I know you're outnumbered out there, but I just want you to know, just here on the High Wire, millions of people are watching you through our show. We've been showing your great testimonies in front of Parliament. So keep up the work. It truly is important. I really think the future of this world, of our children, of our species, is hanging in the balance. And it's people like you that are really making a difference. So it's really an honor to have this opportunity to spend with you today. Thank you for taking the time.
It was my pleasure, and within 2 weeks I come to the US. I will speak also at CPAC. So it's always a pleasure to be in the United States.
All right, well, we'll see you there. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.